Baby noticed a German shepherd stuck between two trees. What the baby did. Next, it left people in tears. What happened next will shock you. Before we begin, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible stories like this one. The story you're about to listen will change how you see the power of a child's heart forever. Rain had painted the morning streets of Pine Valley in shades of silver and gray. 5-year-old Ethan walked beside his mother Maya, his small hand wrapped around her fingers as they cut through the familiar trail that wound behind the weekend market. The air smelled fresh, like wet earth and pine needles, and puddles reflected the cloudy sky like broken mirrors scattered along their path. Ethan had always been different from other children his age. While other kids ran around making noise, he moved quietly, listening to sounds that others missed. His kindergarten teacher once told Maya that Ethan could hear a pin drop from across the classroom. Today, that gift would prove to be more important than anyone could imagine. They were halfway through the trail when Ethan suddenly stopped walking. His small body went completely still, and his head tilted to one side like a curious puppy. Maya felt the gentle tug on her hand as he came to a halt. "What is it, sweetheart?" Maya asked, glancing down at her son. She was used to his sudden pauses. Sometimes he stopped to listen to birds, sometimes to watch ants marching across the path. But this time felt different. Ethan's brown eyes were wide, focused on something beyond the trees. He lifted his free hand and pointed toward a thick cluster of oak trees about 20 feet off the main trail. "Mama," he whispered, his voice barely audible, "someone's crying." Maya strained her ears, listening for whatever Ethan had heard. The wind rustled through the leaves above them, and somewhere in the distance she could hear cars passing on the main road. But crying? She heard nothing. "I don't hear anything, honey," she said gently, trying to coax him forward. Maybe it was just the wind in the trees. But Ethan shook his head firmly. His grip on her hand tightened, and she could see the concern growing in his young face. "No, Mama, it's hurt. Something's really hurt." Before Maya could respond, Ethan slipped his hand from hers and stepped off the paved trail. His small feet made soft, squelching sounds in the muddy ground as he moved toward the trees with a determination that surprised her. "Ethan, wait!" Maya called, but he was already pushing through the low branches and wet leaves. She had no choice but to follow, her sneakers slipping slightly on the damp earth. That's when she heard it too, a sound that made her blood run cold. It was faint, barely a whisper on the breeze, but unmistakable. A low, raspy whimper that spoke of pain and desperation. The sound seemed to be coming from deeper in the cluster of trees where two massive oak trunks had grown so close together they formed a narrow V shape. Ethan was moving toward the sound like he was being pulled by an invisible string. His small face was set with purpose, and Maya realized that her quiet, gentle son had heard this cry for help long before she ever could. "Ethan, be careful," she whispered, catching up to him as they approached the twin oaks. What they found between those two trees would haunt Maya's dreams and fill her heart with both horror and hope in equal measure. Wedged tightly between the two massive trunks was a German shepherd. The dog was large, probably weighing close to 70 pounds, with a thick black and tan coat that was now matted with mud and debris. But it wasn't just stuck, it was trapped in the cruelest way imaginable. Around the dog's chest was a thick leather harness, the kind used for working dogs or security animals. But this harness had become a death trap. A thin steel cable, probably left by someone doing tree work, had gotten wrapped around the harness and was now caught on both tree trunks. Every time the poor animal tried to move, the cable pulled tighter, pinning him more securely between the trees. The dog's back leg was trembling with exhaustion and pain. His beautiful coat was scraped raw in several places where he had struggled against the bark. One of his front paws kept twitching, as if he was still trying to dig his way to freedom even though his body had given up. When Ethan whispered, "Hi there, boy," the dog's ears perked up slightly, and his dark eyes focused on the child with a mixture of hope and wariness. Maya felt her heart break as she took in the full scene. This wasn't just a dog that had gotten stuck playing. This was an animal that had been fighting for his life, probably for hours, maybe longer. The ground around the trees was torn up from his claws, and she could see streaks of blood on the bark where he had scraped himself raw trying to escape. She pulled out her phone immediately, hoping to call for help, but the screen showed those dreaded words. "No service." They were in a dead zone, too far from the main road for cell towers to reach them, and too deep in the trees for the signal to get through. Thunder rumbled somewhere over the ridge, a low warning that the weather was about to get worse. Maya looked up at the darkening sky and felt panic rising in her chest. They couldn't leave this poor animal here, but she had no idea how to help him. The dog, she decided to call him Rex in her mind, was looking at them with eyes that held intelligence and desperation. His breathing was labored, his chest rising and falling rapidly as he struggled against the cable that was slowly choking him. Ethan stepped closer, completely unafraid. "Don't worry," he said in his soft voice. "We're going to help you." Rex's tail gave a weak wag just once, as if he understood. But even that small movement caused the cable to shift, and the dog whimpered again. Maya knelt down beside her son, studying the situation. The cable was wound around the harness in a complex tangle. It looked like Rex had been trying to push through the narrow space between the trees when the cable caught. His struggles had only made it worse, wrapping the steel wire tighter and tighter until he couldn't move forward or backward. "Mama, we have to help him," Ethan said, and she could hear tears starting in his voice. "I know, baby, I know." Maya reached out carefully, trying to see if she could loosen the cable, but the moment her fingers touched the steel wire, Rex yelped in pain. The cable was cutting into his chest, and any movement just made it worse. She tried lifting the cable from different angles, hoping to create some slack, but it was no use. The wire was caught on jagged pieces of bark on both trees, and Rex's weight was pulling it tight like a noose. A gust of wind shook the trees above them, sending a shower of raindrops down on their heads. Somewhere in the canopy, a dead branch creaked ominously. Maya realized that if the storm got worse, falling branches could make this situation deadly for all of them. She sat back on her heels, feeling helpless. The dog was trapped. They had no cell service, and the weather was getting worse by the minute. How were they supposed to save an animal this size when she couldn't even budge the cable that was holding him? Ethan seemed to sense her despair. He unwound the red scarf from around his neck, the one Maya had insisted he wear because the morning had been chilly, and held it out to her. "For him, Mama," he said simply. "Maybe it will help." Maya took the soft scarf, understanding her son's instinct, even if she wasn't sure how it would work. Very carefully, she tried to slide the fabric between the cable and Rex's chest, hoping to create some padding that might ease the pressure. Rex held perfectly still as she worked, as if he understood that these strangers were trying to help him. But even with the scarf as padding, the cable was still too tight. She couldn't create enough slack to free him. Another gust of wind shook the trees, and this time a small branch broke loose and crashed down just a few feet away from them. Rex startled at the sound, pulling against his restraints, and Maya could see the panic returning to his eyes. "It's okay, boy," Ethan whispered, reaching out slowly to let Rex smell his small hand. "We won't leave you." But as Maya looked around at their situation, trapped dog, no cell service, approaching storm, she wondered how on earth they were going to keep that promise. The rain was starting to fall harder now, and she could hear more thunder rumbling closer. Time was running out, and they needed a miracle, or at least they needed tools. Maya stood up, brushing wet leaves from her knees, her mind racing through possibilities. She had to do something, but what? She wasn't strong enough to lift a 70-pound dog, and even if she could, the cable would just cut deeper into his chest. They needed help, but there was no one around for miles. "Mama, what about Mr. Chen?" Ethan said suddenly, tugging at her jacket. Maya looked down at her son, confused. "What about him, honey?" "His shed, remember? We saw it last week when we walked the other way." Ethan pointed toward the lower part of the trail, where it curved away from the main path. "He had lots of tools." Maya's heart leaped. Mr. Chen was an elderly man who lived in a small house near the trail. He kept a tool shed close to the path, and she remembered seeing him there once, working on some kind of garden project. It was a long shot, but it was better than standing here helplessly while Rex suffered. "You're right, sweetheart. That's brilliant." She looked back at Rex, whose breathing seemed more labored than before. "But we can't leave him alone. What if something happens?" Ethan knelt down next to Rex, his small hand hovering just above the dog's head. "I'll stay with him," he said quietly. "Absolutely not." Maya's voice was firm. "We stick together, always." Instead, she scooped Ethan up in her arms and started moving as fast as she could through the muddy terrain. Her son wasn't heavy, but carrying him while navigating wet roots and slippery leaves made the journey feel endless. Every second that passed was another second Rex was trapped between those trees. They found Mr. Chen's shed exactly where Ethan remembered it. The small wooden structure sat at the edge of his property, right where the trail curved. Maya had never met the man properly, but she knew he was known in the neighborhood for being kind and helpful. She hammered on the door of his house, Ethan still in her arms. "Mr. Chen, please, we need help." The door opened to reveal a thin, elderly man with silver hair and concerned eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He took one look at Maya's muddy clothes and Ethan's worried face and seemed to understand that this was an emergency. "What's wrong?" he asked, already reaching for a jacket hanging by the door. "There's a dog trapped between two trees up the trail," Maya said breathlessly. "He's caught by some kind of cable, and we can't get him free. Do you have any tools we could borrow? A saw, maybe? Or wire cutters?" Mr. Chen didn't hesitate. "Of course, come with me." He led them to his shed, which was neat and organized, with tools hanging on pegboard walls. He grabbed a small handsaw, a pair of heavy-duty garden pruners, and something Maya hadn't thought of, a thick rubber bungee cord. "This might help create slack," he explained, holding up the bungee cord. "If you can loop it through his harness, you might be able to pull in the opposite direction while someone works on the cable." "That's genius," Maya said, hope filling her voice for the first time since they'd found Rex. Mr. Chen started to follow them back toward the trees, but Maya stopped him. "No, please. You've done enough, and this could be dangerous if the storm gets worse. We'll bring your tools back." The older man nodded, understanding. "Be careful," he called as they hurried back up the trail. "And if you need anything else, just come get me." The journey back to Rex seemed to take forever, even though Maya knew it had only been about 10 minutes since they'd left him. Her arms ached from carrying Ethan, but she didn't dare put him down in the muddy terrain. Every few seconds, she found herself listening for Rex's whimpers, afraid that the silence might mean they were too late. When they finally reached the Twin Oaks, Maya felt a wave of relief. Rex was still there, still breathing, though he looked weaker than before. His head was hanging lower, and his legs were trembling more visibly. "We're back, boy," Ethan whispered as Maya set him down. "We brought help." Rex's ears perked up slightly at the sound of Ethan's voice, and his tail gave that same weak wag they'd seen before. But Maya could see that the dog was fading. They needed to work fast. She studied the situation with fresh eyes, the tools giving her new hope. The cable was wrapped around Rex's harness in a complex tangle, but she could see that most of the tension was coming from 2 points where it was caught on the rough bark of the trees. "Okay, here's what we're going to do," she said, more to herself than to Ethan. "I'm going to try to use the bungee cord like Mr. Chen suggested. If I can create some slack, maybe I can get the pruners in there to cut the cable." She approached Rex slowly, speaking in a calm, gentle voice. "Easy, boy. We're going to help you, but I need you to stay very still, okay?" Rex seemed to understand, his dark eyes fixed on hers, and she could see trust there, mixed with desperation. This animal was putting his life in their hands. Very carefully, Maya began working the rubber bungee cord through Rex's harness. It was tricky because she had to reach around the cable without putting pressure on it, but eventually she managed to thread the cord through the chest strap of the harness. "Ethan, I need you to help me," she said. "But you have to do exactly what I say, okay?" Her son nodded solemnly, understanding that this was serious. "I'm going to pull on this bungee cord to create slack in the cable. When I do, I need you to watch Rex's face. If he looks like he's in pain, if he whimpers or tries to struggle, you tell me immediately. Can you do that?" "Yes, Mama." Maya positioned herself at an angle where she could pull the bungee cord away from the trees. The idea was to create tension in the opposite direction, hopefully loosening the cable enough for her to work. "Ready?" she asked. Ethan knelt down next to Rex's head, his small hand gently stroking the dog's ears. "Ready." Maya pulled gently on the bungee cord. For a moment, nothing happened. Then she felt the tension change, and Rex's body shifted slightly. The cable loosened just a fraction, but it was enough. "How's he doing?" Maya asked, not daring to take her eyes off the cable. "He's okay," Ethan reported. "He's looking at me. His breathing looks a little better." Working as quickly as she could, Maya used her free hand to position the garden pruners around the cable. The metal wire was thick and strong, but the pruners Mr. Chen had given them were heavy-duty. She squeezed the handles with all her strength. The cable held for a moment, then snapped with a sharp ping that echoed through the trees. Immediately, Rex's body sagged with relief. Half the tension was gone, but he was still trapped. The other side of the cable was still caught on the second tree. "One down, one to go," Maya muttered, repositioning herself to work on the other side. This part was trickier because she had to reach around Rex's body to get to the cable. The dog seemed to understand what was happening and held perfectly still, even though Maya knew her movements must be uncomfortable for him. The second cable was wound more tightly around a jagged piece of bark. Maya had to use the handsaw first to cut away some of the rough wood, then position the pruners carefully to avoid cutting Rex's harness along with the cable. "Almost there, boy," she whispered. "Just hang on a little longer." The second cable snapped with another sharp ping, and suddenly Rex was free. For a moment, the big dog just stood there between the trees, as if he couldn't believe the pressure was gone. Then his legs buckled, and he collapsed onto his side in the muddy ground. Maya's heart stopped. Rex! But then she saw the dog's tail move, just slightly, and she realized he had collapsed from exhaustion and relief, not because he was dying. His chest was rising and falling more easily now, and when Ethan reached out to stroke his head, Rex actually lifted it to lick the boy's wrist. The gesture was so gentle, so grateful, that Ethan started to cry. "It's okay," he whispered to the dog. "You're safe now." Maya sat back on her heels, suddenly aware that she was shaking. They had done it. They had actually freed him. But now what? Rex was clearly injured and exhausted. His harness had left deep grooves in his fur where the cable had cut into him, and she could see that his back leg was hurt. The thunder was getting closer now, and the rain was starting to fall harder. They couldn't stay here in the open, but Rex was too big and too weak for them to carry. "We need to get him somewhere safe," Maya said, thinking out loud. "But how?" Ethan looked up at her with those wise eyes of his. "Mr. Chen," he said simply. Maya realized her son was right again. Mr. Chen had been so helpful before. Maybe he would help again. But before she could respond, Rex struggled to get his feet under him. The big dog was trying to stand, his legs shaking with the effort. Maya reached out to steady him, and Rex leaned against her gratefully. "You want to come with us, don't you?" she asked softly. Rex's tail wagged weakly, and he took a tentative step forward. He was limping badly on his back leg, but he was mobile. "Okay, boy, we'll go slow." The journey back to Mr. Chen's house was like a strange, slow-motion parade. Maya and Ethan walked on either side of Rex, ready to catch him if he fell. The dog moved carefully, clearly in pain, but determined to keep going. Halfway there, they met Mr. Chen coming up the trail with an old wheelbarrow. "I thought you might need this," he said with a gentle smile. Maya could have hugged him. Together, they helped Rex into the wheelbarrow, which was just big enough to hold him if he curled up. The dog seemed to understand that this would be easier, and he settled into the wheelbarrow with a sigh of relief. "There's a vet clinic about 15 minutes from here," Mr. Chen said as they pushed the wheelbarrow down the trail. "Dr. Mills, she's very good with emergency cases." "Will she see him even though we don't know who owns him?" Maya asked, suddenly worried about the practical aspects of their rescue. Mr. Chen glanced down at Rex, who was looking up at them with those intelligent dark eyes. "Any decent vet will treat an injured animal first and worry about paperwork later." They transferred Rex to Maya's car, which was parked near the market. The dog seemed to understand that the car meant help, and he settled into the back seat without complaint. Ethan climbed in next to him, his small hand resting protectively on Rex's head. "It's going to be okay," Ethan whispered to the dog. "The doctor will help you feel better." As Maya drove toward the vet clinic, she kept glancing in the rearview mirror at her son and the dog they had rescued. Rex's head was resting on Ethan's lap, and both of them looked calmer than they had all morning. But Maya had a strange feeling in her stomach, like this was just the beginning of something bigger. Rex wasn't just any stray dog. His harness was too professional, too expensive. Someone was looking for him, and Maya wasn't sure that was going to be a good thing. The rain was falling steadily now, drumming on the roof of the car as they pulled into the parking lot of Pine Valley Veterinary Clinic. Through the glass doors, Maya could see a woman in scrubs behind the reception desk. "Ready, boy?" Ethan asked Rex softly. The dog lifted his head and looked toward the clinic, as if he knew this was where his real healing would begin. But as they prepared to carry him inside, Maya noticed something she had missed before. On Rex's thick leather collar, partially hidden by his fur, was a small metal tag. Not a regular pet tag with a name and phone number, but something else. Something that looked almost like a computer chip or scanner code. And suddenly Maya realized that their rescue mission might have just gotten a lot more complicated. The veterinary clinic was warm and bright, a sharp contrast to the cold, gray morning. Outside, Dr. Mills, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and gentle hands, took one look at Rex and immediately ushered them into an examination room. "Let's get him on the table," she said, her voice calm and professional. "Can you tell me what happened?" Maya explained about finding Rex trapped between the trees while Dr. Mills began her examination. The vet's hands moved expertly over the dog's body, checking for injuries, feeling for broken bones, listening to his heart and breathing. "He's dehydrated and exhausted," Dr. Mills said after a few minutes. "These harness marks are deep, but they'll heal. The real concern is this back leg. I think we need x-rays." Rex lay still during the examination, but his eyes never left Ethan's face. The boy stood next to the table, one small hand resting on Rex's paw, whispering encouraging words. "You're being so brave," Ethan told the dog. "The doctor is going to make you all better." Dr. Mills smiled at the connection between the boy and the dog. "He seems very attached to you," she told Ethan. "That's a good sign. Animals know when people care about them." While they waited for the x-ray results, Dr. Mills cleaned Rex's wounds and gave him fluids to help with the dehydration. The dog seemed to perk up a little after the IV, his eyes becoming more alert. "Now," Dr. Mills said, sitting down with a clipboard, "do you know anything about his owner? Any idea how long he was trapped?" Maya shook her head. "We just found him this morning, but there's something..." She pointed to the metal tag on Rex's collar. "This doesn't look like a normal pet tag." Dr. Mills leaned closer to examine the tag. It was small and rectangular, with what looked like a barcode or QR code printed on it. Below the code was some text, but it was too small to read clearly. "Let me get my magnifying glass," Dr. Mills said, walking to a cabinet. When she returned, she held the glass over the tag and read aloud, "Property of Blackstone Security, K9 Division." Maya felt her stomach drop. "Security? Like a guard dog?" "Looks like it." Dr. Mills was frowning now. "But if he's a working security dog, what was he doing loose in the woods? And why wasn't anyone looking for him?" Before Maya could answer, the X-ray technician returned with the films. Dr. Mills clipped them to a light board on the wall and studied them carefully. "Well, the good news is no broken bones," she announced. "The bad news is there's a hairline fracture in this back leg and some soft tissue damage. He's going to need rest and medication, probably for several weeks." "But he'll be okay?" Ethan asked, his voice small with worry. "He'll be fine," Dr. Mills assured him. "Dogs are remarkably resilient, but he can't be running around or doing security work for a while." Maya was about to ask about the next steps when Dr. Mills pulled out her phone. "Let me scan this QR code," she said. "Maybe it will tell us who to contact." She held her phone's camera over the tag, and after a moment, a web page began to load. But instead of contact information, what appeared on the screen made Dr. Mills frown. "That's odd," she muttered, showing Maya the phone. The web page was mostly blank, with just a few lines of text. "North Point Security Solutions, K9 Asset Recovery, ID K9-7742, status decommissioned." "Decommissioned?" Maya repeated. "What does that mean?" Dr. Mills was already typing on her phone, trying to find more information about North Point Security Solutions. "I'm not sure, but it doesn't sound good. Let me see if I can find a phone number for this company." While Dr. Mills searched, Maya found herself studying Rex more carefully. Now that she looked at him with the knowledge that he was a trained security dog, she could see the signs. His posture, even while lying down, was alert and professional. His eyes tracked movement around the room in a way that suggested training, and despite everything he had been through, he had never once shown aggression or fear, just patience and intelligence. "What kind of training do security dogs get?" she asked Dr. Mills. "Depends on the company," the vet replied, still scrolling through search results on her phone. Some are trained for property protection, some for personal security. The good companies treat their dogs well, but she trailed off, her expression darkening. But what? But some of these private security firms, well, let's just say not all of them have the animal's best interests at heart. And this decommissioned status is concerning. It could mean he's retired, or it could mean something worse. Maya felt a chill that had nothing to do with the rain outside. What do you mean, something worse? Dr. Mills looked uncomfortable. Sometimes when security dogs get too old, or if they're injured and can't work anymore, unscrupulous companies will dispose of them rather than pay for their care. The words hung in the air like a dark cloud. Maya looked at Rex, who was resting peacefully on the examination table, trusting them completely. The idea that someone might have abandoned him in those woods to die was almost too horrible to think about. But that's illegal, right? Ethan asked. He had been listening to the conversation with wide eyes. It should be, Doctor, Mills said grimly, but proving it is another matter entirely. She finally found a phone number for North Point Security Solutions and dialed it. Maya and Ethan watched as she spoke to someone on the other end, explaining that they had found one of their dogs and asking about the proper procedure for returning him. The conversation was brief, and when Dr. Mills hung up, her expression was troubled. What did they say? Maya asked. That's the strange part. The person I spoke to said they would look into it and call me back. But when I gave them Rex's ID number, there was this long pause, like they were surprised, almost like they weren't expecting him to be found. Maya felt that chill again, stronger this time. Doctor, Mills, I don't like this. Something doesn't feel right. The vet nodded. I agree. Let me make a few more calls, see if I can find out more about this company's practices. While Dr. Mills made her calls, Maya and Ethan stayed with Rex. The dog seemed much better after the fluids and pain medication, but he was still weak. Every few minutes, he would lift his head to make sure Ethan was still there, then settle back down with a contented sigh. He really likes you? Maya told her son. I like him too, Ethan replied, gently stroking Rex's ears. Mama, what if his owners don't want him anymore because he's hurt? It was an innocent question, but it cut straight to the heart of Maya's fears. What if North Point Security really had abandoned Rex because of his injury? What if they had deliberately left him in those woods to die? Let's not worry about that right now, she said, trying to keep her voice calm. Dr. Mills will figure out what's best for him. But even as she said it, Maya was already making plans in her head. If North Point Security didn't want Rex, if they had truly abandoned him, then she would take him home herself. She couldn't bear the thought of this gentle, intelligent animal ending up in a shelter or worse. Dr. Mills returned after about 20 minutes, her expression even more troubled than before. What did you find out? Maya asked. North Point Security Solutions has a very interesting reputation, Dr. Mills said carefully. I spoke to a colleague of mine who works with law enforcement. According to him, they've been under investigation for several months for their treatment of working animals. What kind of investigation? The details are confidential, but it has to do with what happens to their dogs when they can't work anymore. There have been reports of animals being abandoned or worse. Maya felt sick. So Rex might have been deliberately left in those woods? It's possible. The fact that he was trapped between those trees with that cable, it's almost like someone wanted to make sure he couldn't get free. The implication was horrifying. Maya looked at Rex, who was sleeping peacefully now, trusting them to keep him safe. Someone had tried to kill this beautiful, intelligent animal, and they had almost succeeded. What do we do now? She asked. Well, legally, I have to notify his registered owners that he's been found, Dr. Mills said, but I can also recommend that he stay here for several days of observation, given his injuries. That will give us time to figure out the best course of action. And if they don't want him back, Dr. Mills smiled for the first time since they had arrived, then I think he's already found himself a new family, don't you? Maya looked at Ethan, who was still gently petting Rex's head. Her son looked up at her with hopeful eyes, and she realized that somewhere between finding Rex trapped in those trees and sitting here in this clinic, her heart had been completely stolen by this brave, gentle dog. We'll take him, she heard herself saying. If North Point doesn't want him, we'll give him a home. Dr. Mills nodded approvingly. I thought you might say that. Let me call them back and see what their response is. In the meantime, I want to keep Rex here overnight for observation. Those harness wounds need professional care, and I want to make sure there are no complications from his ordeal. Can we visit him? Ethan asked. Of course. In fact, I think it would be good for him to see friendly faces while he recovers. As they prepared to leave Rex at the clinic, Maya felt a strange mixture of emotions. Relief that the dog was safe and would recover. Anger at whoever had abandoned him in such a cruel way. And underneath it all, a growing sense that this rescue had changed something fundamental in their lives. Ethan hugged Rex goodbye, whispering promises that they would be back soon. The dog seemed to understand, his tail wagging weakly as he watched them leave. In the parking lot, Maya pulled out her phone to call Mr. Chen and let him know that Rex was safe. But as she dialed, she noticed a black pickup truck parked across the street from the clinic. 2 men in dark jackets were sitting in the front seat, and they seemed to be watching the veterinary clinic. Maya felt a prickle of unease. Maybe it was just a coincidence. Maybe they were waiting for someone else, or maybe they had their own pet emergency. But as she and Ethan got into their car, Maya noticed the black truck start its engine, and when she pulled out of the parking lot, she could see in her rearview mirror that the truck was following them. Her hands tightened on the steering wheel. Maybe she was being paranoid, but after everything Dr. Mills had told them about North Point security, Maya wasn't taking any chances. Ethan, she said, trying to keep her voice calm, I need you to do me a favor. Look in the side mirror and tell me if you see a black truck behind us. Her son craned his neck to look. Yes, Mama, there's a black truck. Why? Probably nothing, Maya said, but she took a deliberately complicated route home, making several unnecessary turns. The black truck stayed with them for 3 blocks, then suddenly turned off and disappeared. Maya exhaled slowly, telling herself she had been imagining things. But as they pulled into their driveway, she made a mental note to call Dr. Mills later and ask her to be extra careful about who she gave information to about Rex. Because if someone really had tried to kill that beautiful dog once, Maya had a terrible feeling they might try again. And this time, she was going to make sure Rex was protected. As they walked into their house, Ethan looked up at her with serious eyes. Mama, Rex is going to live with us now, right? Maya knelt down to her son's level, brushing a strand of damp hair from his forehead. If everything works out the way I hope it will, then yes, Rex is going to live with us. Ethan smiled, the first truly happy smile she had seen from him all day. Good. He needs a family who will love him. Maya hugged her son tightly, thinking about the events of the morning. They had started their day with a simple walk through the woods, and now they were potentially adopting a dog with a mysterious and possibly dangerous past. But looking at Ethan's joyful face, Maya knew they had done the right thing. Rex had chosen them just as much as they had chosen him, and whatever came next, they would face it together. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Rex trapped between those trees, or imagined him being deliberately abandoned in the woods to die. She kept thinking about the black truck that had followed them, and about Dr. Mills's warnings about North Point security. Around 2 in the morning, she gave up trying to sleep and went to check on Ethan. Her son was sleeping peacefully, but she could hear him murmuring in his dreams. She leaned closer and caught the words, "Good boy, Rex," and "We'll keep you safe." Even in sleep, Ethan was thinking about the dog they had rescued. Maya went downstairs and made herself a cup of tea, then sat at the kitchen table with her laptop. She wanted to research North Point security solutions more thoroughly, to understand what they might be dealing with. What she found made her blood run cold. North Point Security Solutions was a private military contractor that provided various services including personal protection, property security, and K-9 units. On the surface, they looked like a legitimate business with professional websites and corporate clients. But when Maya dug deeper, searching through news articles and forum discussions, a different picture emerged. There were complaints from former employees about mistreatment of animals. There were reports of dogs being retired at suspiciously young ages, and there were hints of something even darker. Rumors that some of their K-9 units were used for purposes that went far beyond normal security work. One forum post from someone claiming to be a former North Point trainer was particularly disturbing. They don't see the dogs as animals with feelings. They see them as equipment, and when equipment breaks or gets too expensive to maintain, they dispose of it. I've seen dogs disappear overnight, and when you ask about them, you're told they were transferred or retired. But I know better. Maya closed the laptop, feeling sick. If these reports were true, then Rex hadn't just been abandoned. He had been marked for elimination. And somehow, by pure luck, Ethan had heard his cries for help. She tried to tell herself that she was overreacting, that maybe North Point was a legitimate company and Rex had simply gotten lost. But deep down, she knew that wasn't true. The way Rex had been trapped, the damage to his QR code, the decommissioned status, it all pointed to something deliberate and sinister. The next morning, Maya called Dr. Mills first thing. "How's Rex doing?" she asked. "Much better," the vet replied. "He ate a good breakfast and his spirits seem improved. But, Maya, I need to tell you something. I got a call from North Point Security about an hour ago." Maya's heart sank. "What did they say?" "They're sending someone to pick him up this afternoon. A man named Jack Walsh said he was the K9 handler and that Rex was valuable company property." "Dr. Mills, you can't let them take him," Maya said urgently. "I spent all night researching this company, and I think Rex was deliberately abandoned. I think they tried to kill him." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Maya, that's a very serious accusation. I know it sounds crazy, but please, just give me a chance to prove it. Can you stall them somehow? Tell them Rex needs more medical treatment?" Dr. Mills was quiet for a moment. "Actually, I can legitimately say that. His wounds are still fresh, and moving him too soon could cause complications. I can probably buy us a day or two." "Thank you," Maya said, relief flooding through her. "That's all I need." After hanging up, Maya called her sister Lisa, who worked as a paralegal at a law firm downtown. "Lisa, I need help," Maya said. "I need to know about animal welfare laws, and about how to legally challenge ownership of a dog." "What's going on?" Lisa asked, concern in her voice. Maya explained the whole situation, from finding Rex in the woods to the disturbing things she had learned about North Point Security. "Okay, this is definitely complicated," Lisa said when Maya finished. "But there are some things we can do. If you can prove the dog was abandoned or mistreated, you might be able to challenge their ownership claim. The problem is, corporations like this usually have good lawyers. What do I need to prove abandonment? Evidence that they deliberately left the dog in a situation where he could die, photos of where you found him, veterinary records showing his injuries, testimony from witnesses. The more documentation you have, the better." Maya thought about this. "What about the damaged QR code on his collar? And the fact that his status was listed as decommissioned? That could be very helpful," Lisa said. "It suggests they weren't planning to reclaim him. I'll do some research on North Point Security and see what I can find about their business practices." After talking to Lisa, Maya called Mr. Chen to thank him again for his help, and to ask if he would be willing to serve as a witness about Rex's condition when they found him. "Of course," the elderly man said immediately. "That poor dog was in terrible shape. Anyone could see he had been there for hours, maybe longer. And the way that cable was wound around his harness, it didn't look like an accident to me." "What do you mean?" "I've done a lot of work with cables and ropes in my time," Mr. Chen said. "The way that wire was tangled, it looked deliberate, like someone had wrapped it that way on purpose." Maya felt a chill. "Would you be willing to take some photos of the area where we found him, and maybe write down what you observed?" "Already ahead of you," Mr. Chen said. "I went back there this morning and took pictures. Something about this whole situation bothered me, so I wanted to document everything while the evidence was still there." "Mr. Chen, you're amazing. Thank you. That little boy of yours has a good heart," he said, "and that dog deserves a chance at a real life. I'll do whatever I can to help." Maya spent the rest of the morning gathering evidence and making calls. She photographed the red scarf that Ethan had given her for Rex, which still had mud stains and traces of the dog's fur on it. She printed out her research about North Point Security and organized it into a file. She even called the local news station to see if they might be interested in the story. Around lunchtime, she and Ethan went to visit Rex at the clinic. The dog looked much better than he had the day before. His eyes were brighter, and he wagged his tail when he saw them. "He's been asking for you all morning," Dr. Mills said with a smile. "Every time the door opens, he looks up hopefully." Ethan sat next to Rex's kennel and talked to him in his soft voice, telling the dog about their house and their backyard and all the toys he would have to play with. Rex listened intently, his head tilted as if he understood every word. "Dr. Mills," Maya said quietly. "Has anyone from North Point shown up yet?" "No, but they called again about an hour ago. I told them Rex needed at least another day of observation. The man who called, Jack Walsh, didn't sound very happy about it." "What did he say exactly?" Dr. Mills frowned. "He said that Rex was company property and that they had invested a lot of money in his training. He said delays were costing them money and that they expected him to be ready for pickup tomorrow morning." "Did he ask about Rex's condition? About his injuries?" "That's the strange part," Dr. Mills said. "He didn't seem concerned about Rex's health at all, just about getting him back quickly. Most owners would want to know how their dog was doing, what kind of treatment he needed. This man only cared about the timeline." Maya and Dr. Mills were talking when they heard a commotion in the waiting room. Through the door, Maya could see two men in dark jackets talking to the receptionist. Her heart started racing as she recognized the type of clothing the men in the black truck had been wearing. "Dr. Mills," Maya whispered urgently. "I think they're here." The vet looked through the door, and her expression tightened. "Stay here with Rex," she said. "I'll handle this." Dr. Mills went out to the waiting room, and Maya could hear voices through the door, though she couldn't make out the words. The conversation seemed tense, with Dr. Mills speaking in firm, professional tones and the men responding more aggressively. After about 10 minutes, Dr. Mills returned, looking shaken. "They wanted to take Rex right now," she said. "They had some kind of laminated card they claimed was identification, but when I asked for official paperwork showing ownership, they said they would have to come back with it." "What did they look like?" Maya asked. "Two men, probably in their 30s. One was tall and thin, with a scar on his cheek. The other was shorter, but heavily built. They both had this military bearing, very serious, very intimidating." Maya felt her stomach clench. These men had come to take Rex, and something about them felt dangerous. "Dr. Mills, I don't think they're going to give up easily." "I agree, and I'll be honest with you, Maya, I'm starting to worry about Rex's safety, and yours." As if he sensed the tension in the room, Rex whimpered softly and tried to stand up in his kennel. Ethan immediately went to comfort him. "It's okay, boy," he whispered. "We won't let anyone hurt you." But Maya could see the worry in her son's eyes. Ethan was only 5, but he was smart enough to understand that something bad was happening. Dr. Mills checked the locks on the clinic doors and pulled the blinds closed on the front windows. "I think we need to move Rex to the back room," she said, "away from the windows." They carefully transferred Rex to a kennel in the rear treatment area, where he would be hidden from anyone looking through the front of the clinic. The dog seemed to sense the urgency and cooperated fully, even though walking was still painful for him. "What happens now?" Maya asked. "Well, legally, I can keep him here for medical reasons for another day or two, but after that..." Dr. Mills trailed off. "After that, they'll have legal right to take him. Unless we can prove abandonment or abuse. Do you think your sister found anything useful?" Maya was about to answer when her phone rang. It was Lisa. "Maya, you need to hear this," her sister said without preamble. "I've been digging into North Point security, and what I found is disturbing. They've been sued 3 times in the past 2 years by former employees alleging animal cruelty. All 3 cases were settled out of court with non-disclosure agreements." "What kind of animal cruelty?" "The details are sealed, but one of the lawyers I know was involved in one of the cases. He can't give me specifics, but he said it involved dogs being disposed of when they were no longer useful. He also said there might be federal investigators looking into their practices." Maya felt hope rising in her chest. Federal investigators? Apparently there are questions about whether some of their K-9 units were used for illegal purposes. Drug running, intimidation, things like that. If Rex was part of that operation, then he might be evidence in a federal case. "Exactly, Maya. I think you need to contact the FBI. If Rex really was abandoned because he knew too much or because he was injured while doing something illegal, then he might be under federal protection." Maya looked at Rex, who was resting quietly in his kennel, and felt a surge of determination. This gentle, intelligent dog had been through enough. Whatever it took, she was going to make sure he was safe. "Lisa, can you help me contact the right people?" "I'm already on it. I have a contact at the U.S. Attorney's Office. Let me make some calls." After hanging up, Maya shared the conversation with Dr. Mills, who looked both relieved and worried. "That explains a lot," the vet said, "but it also means the situation is more dangerous than we thought. If North Point is involved in illegal activities, they're not going to give up easily. Then we need to make sure Rex is somewhere safe until the authorities can take over." Dr. Mills nodded. "I have an idea. My clinic has a partnership with an animal sanctuary outside the city. It's very secure, and the owners are discreet. If we could move Rex there tonight—" "Do it," Maya said immediately. "Whatever it takes to keep him safe." They spent the next hour making arrangements to transfer Rex to the sanctuary. Dr. Mills called ahead to explain the situation, and the sanctuary owners agreed to take Rex in as an emergency case. As evening approached, Maya felt increasingly nervous. The two men from North Point hadn't returned, but that didn't mean they weren't watching the clinic, and she still had the feeling that she and Ethan were being followed. "Dr. Mills," she said, "I think Ethan and I should go home now, before it gets dark. If those men are watching the clinic, I don't want them to think we're involved in moving Rex." "That's probably smart. We'll transfer him after midnight, when there's less chance of being observed." Maya knelt down next to Rex's kennel for what might be the last time. The dog looked at her with those intelligent dark eyes, and she could swear he understood that something important was happening. "We're going to keep you safe," she promised him. "Whatever it takes." Rex's tail wagged slightly, and he pressed his nose against the kennel door. Maya slipped her fingers through the bars to touch his nose, and Rex licked them gently. Ethan said his own goodbye, whispering promises to Rex that they would see him again soon. The dog seemed calmer after Ethan spoke to him, as if the boy's voice was a source of comfort. As they prepared to leave the clinic, Dr. Mills walked them to the door. "Maya, be careful," she said. "If these people are as dangerous as we think they are, you and Ethan could be at risk too." "I know," Maya said, "but Dr. Mills, we can't let them hurt Rex. He trusted us to save him. We can't let him down now." As they drove home, Maya kept checking her rearview mirror for the black truck. The road seemed clear, but she took a circuitous route just to be safe. "Mama," Ethan said from the back seat, "Rex is going to be okay, right?" Maya looked at her son in the mirror. His young face was serious with worry, and she realized that this experience was teaching him that the world could be a dangerous place. But it was also teaching him that sometimes, when you see someone in trouble, you have to be brave enough to help. "Rex is going to be okay," she told him, "because good people are going to make sure he's safe. Like us? Like us, and like Dr. Mills, and Mr. Chen, and Aunt Lisa. When good people work together, they can protect the ones who need help." Ethan nodded, satisfied with this answer. But Maya knew that their fight to save Rex was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. As they pulled into their driveway, Maya noticed a car parked down the street that hadn't been there when they left. It was too dark to see if anyone was inside, but something about it made her uneasy. She hurried Ethan into the house and locked the door behind them, drawing the curtains closed. Tomorrow, she would find out if the federal authorities were really investigating North Point security, and hopefully, by then, Rex would be safely hidden at the animal sanctuary. But tonight, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, and that their rescue of one abandoned dog had put them in the crosshairs of something much larger and more dangerous than she had ever imagined. Maya barely slept that night. Every small sound outside made her tense up, wondering if someone was trying to get into their house. She kept her phone next to her bed, ready to call 911 at the first sign of trouble. Around 3 in the morning, she got up to check the locks on all the doors and windows. When she peeked through the front curtains, the mysterious car was still parked down the street. The next morning, Maya called Dr. Mills first thing to check on Rex's transfer to the sanctuary. "It went smoothly," Dr. Mills reported. "We moved him around midnight, and he's safely settled at Peaceful Paws Sanctuary. The owners, Tom and Sarah Martinez, are wonderful people. They've dealt with situations like this before." "Thank God," Maya said, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. "How is he doing?" "Better than expected. The change of scenery seems to have energized him. Tom said Rex was exploring his new kennel and even managed a few tail wags." Maya smiled, imagining Rex discovering his new temporary home. "When can we visit him?" "Tom suggests waiting a day or two, just to make sure no one followed us, but he said Rex keeps looking toward the road, like he's waiting for someone." "He's waiting for Ethan," Maya said softly. "Those two have a special bond." After hanging up with Dr. Mills, Maya called Lisa to check on her progress with the federal authorities. "I have news," Lisa said immediately. "I spoke with Assistant U.S. Attorney Jennifer Cole yesterday evening. She's very interested in Rex's case." "What did she say?" "Apparently there is an ongoing federal investigation into North Point Security Solutions. They've been suspected of using their K-9 units for illegal drug operations, intimidation tactics, and worse. Rex might be a key piece of evidence." Maya felt hope surge through her. "So, they can protect him?" "It's complicated. Ms. Cole wants to meet with you today to discuss the situation. But Maya, she warned me that if North Point realizes Rex might be a federal witness, they could become very desperate to get him back, or to make sure he can't testify." The implication sent a chill down Maya's spine. "You mean they might try to hurt him? Or hurt the people protecting him? Maya, you and Ethan might be in real danger." Maya looked toward the stairs, where she could hear Ethan getting ready for school. Her son was humming softly, probably thinking about Rex. The idea that their act of kindness had put him in danger made her feel sick. "What do we do?" she asked. "Meet with the federal prosecutor. Let the authorities handle it from here. And Maya, be very careful. Don't go anywhere alone, and keep your eyes open for anything suspicious." After Ethan left for school, with extra instructions to stay with his teacher and wait for Maya to pick him up, Maya drove to the federal building downtown. She had never been inside a U.S. attorney's office before, and the security and formality were intimidating. Assistant U.S. Attorney Jennifer Cole was a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s with graying hair and an air of quiet authority. She listened intently as Maya recounted the entire story, from finding Rex trapped between the trees to the suspicious men who had shown up at the vet clinic. "You've potentially saved the life of a very important witness," Ms. Cole said when Maya finished. "Rex was part of North Point's K-9 unit, but we believe he was also trained for illegal activities, drug detection dogs that were taught to ignore certain shipments, attack dogs used to intimidate witnesses, protection dogs assigned to people involved in organized crime." "But Rex seems so gentle," Maya protested. "He was wonderful with my 5-year-old son. Many of these dogs are naturally gentle animals who were forced into situations they didn't want to be in. We think Rex might have been decommissioned because he refused to participate in some of the illegal activities, or because he was injured during an operation they wanted to keep secret." Ms. Cole pulled out a thick file folder. "We've been building a case against North Point for months, but we've lacked physical evidence. Most of their records were destroyed, and their former employees are too scared to testify. But Rex could change everything." "How?" "Dogs are trained using specific commands and techniques. If we can prove that Rex was trained for illegal activities, it establishes a pattern of criminal behavior. Plus, his medical records might show injuries, consistent with the violent operations we suspect North Point was running." Maya thought about the scars she had seen on Rex's body, the old injuries that Dr. Mills had noted during his examination. "What happens now? We're going to put Rex in protective custody, along with you and your son. North Point has already shown they're willing to be aggressive to get him back. We can't take any chances." "Protective custody?" Maya's heart raced. "For how long?" "Until we can build a solid case and arrest the key players at North Point. Maybe a few weeks, maybe a few months. I know it's a lot to ask, but you and Ethan are the only witnesses who can testify about finding Rex in those woods. Your testimony about his condition and the deliberate nature of his abandonment is crucial to proving attempted animal murder." Maya thought about Ethan, about disrupting his school and his normal life. But then she thought about Rex, trusting and gentle, who had been through so much already. "Okay," she said. "We'll do it." Ms. Cole smiled for the first time since Maya had arrived. "Thank you. I know this isn't easy, but you're helping us take down an organization that has hurt a lot of animals and people." They spent the next hour going over the details of the protective custody arrangement. Maya and Ethan would be moved to a safe house outside the city, where they would be guarded by federal marshals. Rex would be kept at a secure federal facility where he could receive proper medical care while serving as evidence. "When do we move?" Maya asked. "Tonight. Pack light and don't tell anyone where you're going. In fact, don't even tell anyone that you're leaving. As far as your neighbors know, you're just going about your normal routine." Maya left the federal building with her head spinning. In less than 24 hours, her life had completely changed. She picked up Ethan from school and tried to act normal, but her son seemed to sense that something was different. "Mama, you look worried," he said as they drove home. "I'm just thinking about Rex," she said, which was true enough. "Is he okay?" "He's safe. But, Ethan, we might need to go on a little trip for a while, like a vacation, but not for fun, to help Rex." Ethan considered this seriously. "Will Rex come with us?" "He'll be somewhere safe nearby, and when everything is finished, we'll all be together again." That evening, as Maya packed a small suitcase for herself and Ethan, she kept thinking about how quickly their lives had changed. 3 days ago, they were just a mother and son taking a walk in the woods. Now, they were key witnesses in a federal investigation. Around 8 o'clock, there was a soft knock at the door. Maya looked through the peephole and saw a woman in a dark suit with a federal ID badge. "U.S. Marshal Susan Torres," the woman said when Maya opened the door. "Ms. Cole sent me. Are you ready?" Maya nodded, grabbing their suitcases and Ethan's backpack. "Ethan, remember what we talked about. We're going to help Rex by going somewhere safe for a while." Marshal Torres was kind but efficient. She checked the locks on Maya's house and set up some basic security measures to make it look like they were still home. Then she led them to an unmarked sedan parked in the garage. "Where are we going?" Ethan asked as they drove through the city. "Somewhere safe," Marshal Torres said with a gentle smile. "Somewhere with lots of space to run around, and maybe some other animals to meet." They drove for about an hour, finally turning into a long driveway that led to what looked like a small ranch. The safe house was actually a working farm, run by a retired federal agent and his wife, who specialized in protecting witnesses. "Welcome to Sunny Acres," said Agent Mike Reynolds, a tall man with graying hair and kind eyes. "My wife Carol is getting your rooms ready, and dinner should be ready soon." The farmhouse was warm and comfortable, with a big kitchen that smelled like fresh bread, and a living room filled with comfortable furniture and books. But what really caught Ethan's attention were the animals. "We have horses, chickens, goats, and 3 dogs," Carol Reynolds explained as she showed them around. "The animals are great company, and they're also excellent security. They'll let us know if anyone approaches the property who shouldn't be here." Ethan's eyes lit up at the mention of dogs. "Can I meet them?" "Of course, but first, let me show you something special." Carol led them to a large fenced yard behind the house where a familiar black and tan form was resting in the shade of a large oak tree. "Rex!" Ethan cried out, running toward the fence. Rex's head shot up at the sound of Ethan's voice, and his tail started wagging so hard his whole body wiggled. He struggled to his feet and limped quickly to the fence, whimpering with joy. "How is he here?" Maya asked, surprised. "Ms. Cole thought it would be better to keep him with you," Agent Reynolds explained. "He's evidence, but he's also a living being who's been through trauma. Being separated from the people who saved him wasn't helping his recovery." Ethan was already through the gate, kneeling next to Rex and getting his face thoroughly licked. The dog seemed transformed from the suffering animal they had found in the woods. His eyes were bright, his coat was clean and shiny, and despite his lingering limp, he was clearly happy. "He's been asking for you," Carol said with a smile. "Every time he heard a car, he would look toward the driveway, hopefully." Maya knelt down next to Ethan and Rex, feeling emotions she couldn't quite name. Relief that Rex was safe, joy at seeing him reunited with Ethan, but also a deep sadness for everything this gentle animal had been through. "Hey boy," she said softly, stroking Rex's head. "You're really safe now." Rex looked at her with those intelligent dark eyes, and Maya could swear she saw gratitude there. He seemed to understand that these humans had risked their own safety to protect him. That night, after a dinner of Carol's famous pot roast and homemade pie, Maya tucked Ethan into bed in the cozy guest room that had been prepared for him. "Mama," Ethan said sleepily, "Rex looks happy now." "He does, doesn't he? Do you think he knows we saved him?" Maya thought about this question seriously. "I think he knows that we care about him, and I think that's what matters most. When this is all over, he's going to live with us forever, right?" "I hope so, sweetheart. I really hope so." But even as Maya said the words, she couldn't shake her worry about what North Point security might do to get Rex back. These people had already tried to kill him once. If they discovered where he was being kept, would they try again? The next morning, Maya woke to the sound of Rex barking outside, but it wasn't his happy, playful bark from the night before. This was different, alert, warning. She looked out the window and saw Agent Reynolds walking quickly toward the house, speaking into a radio. Rex was standing at attention in his yard, staring toward the front gate with his hackles raised. Maya's blood went cold. Something was wrong. Agent Reynolds came into the house and found Maya in the kitchen. "We have a situation," he said quietly. "There's a van parked about a mile down the road. It's been there for 20 minutes, which is unusual for this area." "Do you think it's them?" "I don't know, but Rex is acting like he recognizes something or someone. His behavior changed the moment that van showed up." Maya felt panic rising in her chest. "What do we do?" "We wait and watch. This property is very secure, and we have backup on the way. But I want you to stay inside and keep Ethan away from the windows." As Maya went to wake Ethan and explain that they needed to stay inside for a while, she couldn't help but think about how quickly their safe haven had become threatened. Rex had been through so much already. Would he ever truly be safe? Outside, Rex continued his alert barking, and Maya realized that the dog who had been so gentle and trusting with them was also a trained protector. He was trying to keep them safe, just as they had tried to keep him safe. But as the morning wore on and the van remained parked down the road, Maya began to wonder if their rescue of Rex had put them all in more danger than any of them had realized, and whether their small act of kindness was about to become something much bigger and more dangerous than they could handle. The tension at Sunny Acres was thick enough to cut with a knife. Agent Reynolds had called for backup, and within an hour, 2 more unmarked cars had arrived at the farm. Maya watched from the kitchen window as federal agents positioned themselves around the property, their weapons clearly visible. Ethan was in the living room, trying to distract himself with a puzzle that Carol had given him, but Maya could see the worry in his young face. He kept glancing toward the window, where he could see Rex pacing in his yard, still alert and agitated. "Mama," Ethan said quietly, "Rex is scared." Maya looked outside and realized her son was right. Rex wasn't just being protective, he was genuinely frightened. His ears were pinned back, and he kept looking between the house and the front gate, like he was trying to decide whether to run or fight. "He knows something we don't," Agent Reynolds said, joining Maya at the window. "Trained dogs like Rex have incredible instincts. If he's this agitated, there's a real threat out there." As if summoned by their conversation, Marshal Torres's voice crackled over the radio. "We've got movement. The van is approaching the gate." Through the front window, Maya could see a dark van slowly driving up the long driveway. It moved deliberately, like the driver was studying the property. When it reached the gate, it stopped. 2 men got out of the van. Even from a distance, Maya recognized the type. The same military bearing, the same dark clothing as the men who had come to the vet clinic. But these men were different. Bigger, more intimidating. Agent Reynolds spoke into his radio. "Do not engage unless they breach the gate. We need to see what they're planning." For several minutes, the men just stood by the gate, looking at the farmhouse. One of them had binoculars and was systematically scanning the property. The other was speaking into a phone. Rex's barking had become more urgent, and Maya could see him pacing back and forth in his yard, his limp more pronounced as his agitation increased. "They're looking for Rex," she said suddenly. "They know he's here." Agent Reynolds nodded grimly. "The question is, what are they planning to do about it?" The answer came sooner than anyone expected. The man with the phone put it away and walked back to the van. For a moment, Maya thought they were leaving. Then the van's engine roared to life, and it began backing up down the driveway. "They're retreating," Agent Reynolds said into his radio. "Stay alert. This might be a distraction." He was right. As the van disappeared down the road, Maya heard Carol's voice from the back of the house. "Mike, we've got company at the rear gate." Agent Reynolds ran toward the back of the house, and Maya followed, her heart pounding. Through the kitchen window, she could see another vehicle, this one a black pickup truck, parked behind the property. 3 men were cutting through the fence that surrounded the back pasture. "They're trying to flank us," Agent Reynolds said grimly. He spoke into his radio again. "We have a breach at the rear perimeter. All units converge on the back of the property." But Maya was looking at Rex, and what she saw made her blood run cold. The dog had stopped barking. He was standing perfectly still in his yard, staring toward the back of the property with a look of pure terror. "He knows those men," Maya whispered. Agent Reynolds looked at Rex, then at Maya. "What do you mean?" "Look at him. He's not just scared. He's terrified. He recognizes them." As if to confirm Maya's words, Rex suddenly began backing away from the rear fence of his yard, a low whine escaping his throat. This wasn't the behavior of a dog protecting his territory. This was the behavior of a dog who had been hurt by the people approaching. Those are his former handlers, Maya realized. The people who tried to kill him. The next few minutes passed in a blur of shouted commands and running footsteps. Federal agents surrounded the three men who had breached the back fence, but not before Maya saw something that made her understand the true depth of Rex's trauma. One of the men, a tall, lean figure with a scar across his cheek, had pulled out what looked like a small device. When he pressed a button, Rex immediately dropped to the ground and began trembling. "It's a shock collar remote," Agent Reynolds said, his voice filled with anger. "They're torturing him from a distance." Without thinking, Maya ran outside toward Rex's yard. She could hear Agent Reynolds shouting for her to stay inside, but she couldn't watch Rex suffer without trying to help. The dog was lying on his side now, his body convulsing as electric shocks coursed through a hidden collar around his neck. His eyes were wide with pain and terror, and he was making small, helpless sounds that broke Maya's heart. Maya threw open the gate to Rex's yard and dropped to her knees beside him. "It's okay, boy," she whispered, her hands searching through his thick fur for the shock collar. "I'm going to help you." She found the collar, a thin, nearly invisible band hidden beneath Rex's regular collar. Her fingers fumbled with the buckle as Rex continued to shake from the electrical torture. "Maya, get back inside!" Agent Reynolds was running toward her, but Maya ignored him. All that mattered was stopping Rex's pain. Finally, the shock collar came free in her hands. Immediately, Rex's convulsions stopped, and he looked up at Maya with those intelligent dark eyes filled with gratitude and trust. But their relief was short-lived. The man with the remote, the one who had been torturing Rex, broke free from the federal agents and was running toward them across the pasture. "Give me my dog!" he shouted, pulling a gun from his jacket. "That animal is company property." Agent Reynolds reached Maya and Rex just as the man aimed his weapon. "Federal agent!" Reynolds shouted back. "Drop your weapon!" But the man, Maya could see now that he wore a name tag reading J. Walsh, didn't lower his gun. "That dog knows too much," he snarled. "He's a security risk." "Exactly," Agent Reynolds replied calmly, "which is why he's under federal protection." "You don't understand," Walsh said, and Maya could hear desperation in his voice. "If that dog testifies, if he shows what he was trained to do, it will bring down everything. There are powerful people who won't let that happen." "Then those powerful people are going to prison," a new voice said. Maya turned to see Assistant U.S. Attorney Jennifer Cole walking across the pasture, flanked by a team of FBI agents. She looked calm and professional, but there was steel in her voice. "Jack Walsh," Ms. Cole said, "you're under arrest for conspiracy, animal cruelty, and about 15 other federal charges we've been building against North Point security." Walsh's face went pale. "You can't prove anything." "Actually, we can." Ms. Cole held up the shock collar that Maya had removed from Rex. "This device is registered to North Point security. The electrical burns on Rex's neck are documented, and we have testimony from several former employees who are willing to talk about North Point's illegal activities." "What employees?" Walsh demanded. "They all signed non-disclosure agreements." Ms. Cole smiled coldly. "NDAs don't protect illegal activities, Mr. Walsh, and when people learn that you've been torturing and murdering innocent animals, they tend to develop a conscience." As FBI agents moved in to arrest Walsh and his companions, Maya stayed on the ground next to Rex, gently stroking his head. The dog was still trembling, but his breathing was becoming more normal. "You're safe now," she whispered to him. "No one is ever going to hurt you again." Ethan appeared at the gate to Rex's yard, having been escorted outside by Carol Reynolds once the immediate danger was over. He took one look at Rex lying on the ground, and his 5-year-old face crumpled with concern. "Is he okay?" Ethan asked, tears starting in his eyes. "He's going to be fine," Maya assured her son. "But he needs some love right now." Ethan carefully sat down next to Rex and began gently petting the dog's ears, speaking to him in that soft, comforting voice that seemed to have a magical effect on animals. "You're the bravest dog in the world," Ethan told Rex, "and you're going to live with us forever now, where no one can ever hurt you again." Rex's tail gave a weak wag, and he managed to lift his head enough to lick Ethan's hand. It was a small gesture, but Maya could see the healing beginning in that simple exchange of affection. Ms. Cole approached them, her expression much softer now that the arrests were complete. "Maya, Ethan, I can't thank you enough for what you've done. Because of your courage in rescuing Rex and coming forward, we've been able to arrest the key players in one of the largest animal cruelty and illegal security operations in the country." "What happens now?" Maya asked. "Walsh and his team will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. We've already gotten search warrants for all of North Point's facilities, and we expect to rescue dozens of other animals who are being abused." Ms. Cole knelt down next to Rex. "And this brave boy gets to go home with the family, who saved him." "Really?" Ethan's face lit up with joy. "Really, Rex is officially free from North Point security. In fact, he's going to be declared a federal hero for his role in taking down their operation." Over the following weeks, the story of Rex's rescue and the federal investigation became national news. Maya found herself giving interviews to reporters who wanted to know how a 5-year-old boy's keen hearing and kind heart had led to the exposure of a massive criminal organization. But the real story, Maya knew, wasn't about the investigation or the arrests. It was about the bond between a gentle child and a traumatized dog, and how love and compassion could heal even the deepest wounds. 3 months later, Rex was fully recovered from his injuries and had settled into life with Maya and Ethan like he had always been part of their family. His limp was barely noticeable now, and the fear that had once haunted his eyes had been replaced with contentment and joy. On a warm Saturday morning, Maya and Ethan decided to take Rex back to the place where their adventure had begun, the walking trail behind the Pine Valley Market. Rex seemed to remember the location, but instead of showing fear or trauma, he appeared curious and alert. When they reached the twin oak trees where Rex had been trapped, Ethan had an idea. "Mama, can we put something here? Something to remember what happened?" Maya thought about this for a moment, then smiled. "I think that's a wonderful idea." They went to the market and bought bright yellow ribbon, the same color as the sunshine that had broken through the clouds on the day they found Rex. Together, they tied the ribbons around both oak trees, creating a cheerful reminder of hope and rescue. "What should we call it?" Ethan asked, stepping back to admire their work. Maya looked at Rex, who was sitting calmly between the two trees, showing no signs of the trauma he had once experienced there. "How about the Tree of Second Chances?" Ethan nodded approvingly. Rex got a second chance, and now he has a family who loves him. But as they were preparing to leave, Rex began behaving strangely. He was sniffing around the base of the trees with intense focus, as if he was searching for something. "What is it, boy?" Maya asked. Rex began digging in the soft earth near one of the trees. After a few minutes, his paws hit something hard. Maya knelt down to help him dig, and what they found made her heart race. Buried in the shallow dirt was a metal collar, similar to the one Rex had been wearing, but older and more worn, and attached to it was a small metal tag with another dog's identification number. "There was another dog," Maya whispered, understanding flooding through her. Rex looked at her with those intelligent eyes, and Maya realized that his rescue was just the beginning. Somewhere out there might be other animals who had suffered the same fate that Rex had barely escaped. She pulled out her phone and called Ms. Cole immediately. "We need to expand the search," Maya told the prosecutor. "Rex just showed us evidence that there might be other dogs who were abandoned in these woods." The investigation that followed led to the discovery of 3 more burial sites in the area, each containing the remains of dogs who had been decommissioned by North Point security. Rex's rescue had not only saved his own life, it had brought justice for animals who had died before anyone could help them. 6 months after that rainy morning, when Ethan first heard Rex's cries for help, Maya stood in a federal courthouse watching as Jack Walsh and 12 other North Point employees were sentenced to lengthy prison terms for conspiracy, animal cruelty, and racketeering. Rex was there too, wearing a special vest that identified him as a federal witness. He sat calmly next to Ethan throughout the proceedings, occasionally resting his head on the boy's lap. When the judge announced the final sentences, Maya felt a sense of closure that she hadn't expected. Justice had been served, not just for Rex, but for all the animals who had suffered at North Point's hands. But the real victory was simpler and more personal. That evening, as Maya tucked Ethan into bed with Rex curled up on the floor beside him, she reflected on how much their lives had changed. "Mama," Ethan said sleepily, "do you think Rex knows we love him?" Maya looked at the dog, who had lifted his head at the sound of his name. His tail was wagging softly, and his eyes held the peace and contentment of an animal who finally felt safe. "I think he knows, sweetheart, and I think he loves us back." "Good," Ethan murmured, already half asleep, "because families should love each other." Maya smiled as she turned off the light. A simple walk in the woods had led them to find not just a dog in need of rescue, but a missing piece of their own family. Rex had needed them to save his life, but in return, he had given them something just as precious: the knowledge that even the smallest act of kindness could change the world. And in the darkness of Ethan's room, Rex's tail continued to wag softly, a gentle rhythm that spoke of love, safety, and second chances for all who needed them. The story that began with a 5-year-old boy's exceptional hearing and compassionate heart had become something much larger, a testament to the power of standing up for those who cannot speak for themselves. Rex's rescue had exposed a criminal organization, saved other animals, and brought a family together in ways they never could have imagined. Sometimes the most extraordinary adventures begin with the simplest choice: to listen when someone is calling for help, and to act with courage when action is needed most. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more incredible true stories of courage, compassion, and the unbreakable bonds between humans and animals. And remember, sometimes the most important voice calling for help is the one only you can hear.